Hi everyone, it's Nick here again from the TrainAid HQ. In today's video, we are looking at Level 4 Certificate in Education and Training and understanding how to complete question 1.2, summarize key aspects of legislation, regulatory requirements and codes of practice relating to own role and responsibilities. So for this question, we are asking you to reflect on any 4 different types of legislation, regulations or codes of practice. So just in regards to this question, we have a range of different types of legislations available. We also have regulations or regulatory requirements and codes of practice as well. So we just need to summarize any 4, okay? And you just need to explain how they're relevant to your teaching role. So what are legislations? So if we just take legislations in general, so legislations are statutory. They don't often change with time. They are created by governments, so they're essentially laws that all teaching establishments, all training providers, and organizations will adhere to as well. So as we can see there, some of the examples of legislation I have highlighted are the Children Act of 2004, Freedom of Information Act from the year 2000, GDPR 2018, Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, Safeguarding of Vulnerable Groups Act of 2006. So those are just typical examples of some legislations. When you're answering this question, by the way, you can, of course, select your own legislations, regulations, or codes of practice, which are they might not be featured here. So regulations or regulatory requirements, these are, again, very important, but they're usually specific to certain industries, whereas legislations are overreaching. All training providers will adhere to these. Regulations are specific to certain industries. Again, they're very important to adhere to as well. So we have COSH regulations of 2002, food safety and hygiene regulations, manual handling, reporting of injuries, diseases, and dangerous occurrences. So that's RIDDOR. The regulatory reform, so the fire safety order of 2005. So those are just some examples of regulations, but it's very important to note that some industries or companies will follow those. Some will have different ones that they adhere to. Final one is codes of practice. These are often created within your organization, though, so these will be different depending on which training or teaching establishment you work to. So typical ones could be acceptable use of IT, behavior, code of conduct, conflict of interest, any discipline, procedures, dress codes, environmental awareness, sustainability, and timekeeping. So as mentioned, there typically is a staff handbook with all of these codes of practice inside of those as a bit of a benchmark there. So what do we need to do? So we need to describe any four legislations, regulations, or codes of practice. The first one I've done, and I'll just explain that just in a moment. But as you can see there within the table, you can essentially pick out just any 4. So it could be 1 legislation followed by 2 regulations and maybe a code of practice as well. So you've got lots of choice on which ones that you go for. So the name of my first legislation is GDPR, otherwise known as Data Protection Act. So GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation of 2018. So we just need to describe the act and also how this applies to your own teaching practice as well. So I'll just have a read of mine. So there is a requirement under the General Data Protection Regulation of 2018 that teachers and trainers handle learner records and any information securely. The Act sets out the legal requirements when processing personal data, ensuring that sensitive information is protected. So as an example, as a teacher, I keep learners joining instructions confidential and discuss with the learner if they require any support or reasonable adjustments for their course. So it's all about keeping their application form safe and secure. Any previous learner exam results safe and secure. Their learning, individual learning needs safe and secure, confidential. So we're not sort of sharing that information with any other learners as well. So we're taking on board the learner's information, keeping that safe and secure, perhaps within a computer system, which is password protected, all of those things to build trust with our learners, of course. So that is just one example. So you just need to come up with three, well, you need to come up with four. Any four is absolutely fine, but that's the level of detail. Try and go for about 4 lines, because the key word there is to describe. Okay, so not asking for too much information. So I'm just going to put in some more. I will go for, say, manual handling. Regulations. Okay, so manual handling. So that is an example of a regulation there. What else should I go for? I will go for, I think COSH is a very good one. Just going to put that in there. And I will go for one more as well. Let's go for codes of practice, acceptable use of information technology. Okay, so I've got a blend of different legislations, regulations, and codes of practice. So I'll just explain about the ones I've chosen. Okay, so manual handling, operations, regulations 2013. So this, in my eyes, is a very important regulation, because within teaching, you might be changing classrooms, you might be taking equipment from one zone within your organization to another. So it might be all about setting up your classroom. You need to be mindful with things such as moving chairs, tables, boxes, resources. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can lift appropriately. Absolutely. So you might be sharing a classroom with a fellow colleague, and you might need to take all of the resources out to set up as well. So it really is important that manual handling is done correctly and adequately as well. So adequate training should be provided to teachers and trainers in order to do that. So take, for example, we deliver first aid courses nationwide, and therefore with trainers, they need to take mannequins, a laptop projector from their cars to set up in the training room, or they could be training within a school or nursery. It requires a lot of setup, so therefore they need to be ensuring that they can lift appropriately as well. Okay. Another one is COSH. Okay, so control of substances hazardous to health regulations of 2002. Quite an important factor. So within your training establishment, you may have to work with like chemicals such as cleaning products, and therefore you need to wear the most appropriate PPE. There might be signage that you have to put up around the training room as well. Also, you have to teach your learners about just being mindful of these substances as well, and knowing how to respond if there's a spillage which occurs as well. So once again, we are always informing our trainers about any like substances and how to control those if there's a spillage, and who to report to as well. So very important one. But again, that's a regulation. It might be relevant to you, it might not be. So think about the ones that are. Another key factor is With codes of practice, there are many obviously different examples here, but acceptable use of information technology. So this type of code of practice is all about the way in which we use technology. So mobile phone use, the internet, and whether or not we're allowed to use perhaps mobile phones within the classroom. And it's also reminding learners and also staff members about the importance of staying safe online, when and where to obviously access the internet, and when to use mobile phone apps. But it's all to do with like browsing safely, securely. So it is very important for both learners and adults about when and where to use mobile phones. Some teachers use mobile phones within the classroom as a learning tool. Other teachers will state to put your mobile phone just underneath your desk, perhaps within a bag, so they can't access their mobile phones as well. So it's very important to really state when and where they can use like their mobile phones or the internet. For some organizations, if you're working or perhaps observing a learner within a factory, for example, mobile phones should not be used because of the safety aspect and nature of the environment. So sometimes, mobile phones, scrolling, it can be a distraction, and therefore it can become like quite risky and dangerous to use a mobile phone then and there. So just have a read of your perhaps your company's acceptable use of information technology code of practice there. Wonderful. So yeah, just to summarize then, you are selecting a minimum of 4 different types of legislations, regulations, or code of practice. You can have a blend. You can select the ones from my list, but try and aim for a small paragraph for each one as well. So talking about each of the acts or legislations, regulations, or code of practice. What are they and why are they important as well? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully this question is nice and clear. If you need any further support, please do reach out to us. Once again, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.